every season, every second of my life. Everything I see, everything I do, everything I am is you. Everything above, everything below, everything I know is you. Everything I see, everything I do, everything I am is you. Everything above, everything below, everything I know is you.
Good morning. Thank you for being here this beautiful day. We're so grateful to be together in celebration of the one life living itself through us. And so we come together each Sunday to remember the truth of who we are. We are here to nurture a deep and a mature experience of God through the practice of unity principles. More simply put, we're here to love and to grow and to serve. And so we believe that spiritual community enhances our experience of life. It makes it richer, deeper, and more expanded. So we're grateful that you could join us today and be part of this experience. If you're joining us for the first time, we just want to welcome you. We want you to relax and enjoy yourself. If you see folks with blue ribbons, they're here to love and support you, and we hope that you received a guest packet. Also want to let you know that if you are in need of spiritual support, you can place a prayer request in our Ministry of Prayer, which is located in the lobby or also completed online. And today we do have our Wholeness and Healing Ministry that meets after the service in the Unity Room, and they are there to support you in energetic healing. So a wonderful collection of souls who are of service to you, knowing that spiritual truth and reality. And now let's shift the focus and move inward as we relax and simply come together in the realization that there is indeed one life and one power and one presence. This one life we call God, or the 10,000 other names. And whatever we call it, we recognize the oneness, that it is this divine intelligence, this infinite wisdom that expresses in and through and as all creation. We are reminded this day that we live and move and have our very being in this divine presence. We are reminded that we are holy here and now. And so we allow this to be a day of celebration, a day of remembrance, a day of surrender, and a day of allowing. How grateful I am for this opportunity to be together in spiritual truth and wisdom. And how grateful I am for the many hands and hearts that come together to provide this service, this place, this community. Truly, we are blessed. And so knowing that this day unfolds joyously and perfectly, we simply open our hearts to the presence of divine love, our minds to divine wisdom. We know that life is good and that all is well. And so for all of these blessings and so many more, I simply give thanks. I allow it to be so. And together we say, and so it is. Amen.
Reaching out to feel the infinite. I'm reaching out to know the divine. I'm reaching out to know the infinite. Yeah, forever is already mine. I'm reaching out to feel the infinite. I'm reaching out to know the divine. I'm reaching out to feel the infinite, yeah, forever is already mine. I'm already there. I'm already home. I'm already safe in my eternal soul. I'm already there. I'm already home. I'm already safe in my eternal soul. I'm going deep to feel the infinite. I'm going deep to know the divine. I'm going deep to feel the infinite. Yeah, forever is already mine. I'm already there. I'm already home. I'm already safe in my eternal soul. I'm already there. I'm already home. I'm already safe in my eternal soul. I'm rising up to feel the infinite. I'm rising up to know the divine. I'm rising up to feel the infinite. Yeah, forever is already mine. I'm already there. I'm already home. I'm already safe in my eternal soul. I'm already there. I'm already home. I'm already safe in my eternal soul. I'm already there. I'm already home. I'm already safe in my eternal soul. I'm already there. I'm already home. I'm already safe in my eternal soul. Thank you.
Yes. Wonderful. You remain standing and we will speak our April affirmation for the last time this month anyways. So, join me. Today, I awaken to my divine potential. Spirit within me guides my sacred journey. I honor my past, I celebrate my future, and I live in the present. My life is continually expanding in ways of joyful self-expression. Today, I awaken to my divine potential. Thank you. Today we've been speaking all month about the sacred journey, the hero's journey, as laid out in many ways the understanding of it laid out by Joseph Campbell, but the eternal story that we see in all mythology. And so today we want to look at the goddess. Yay. So today I wanted to read from the Psalms to Sophia, from the Wisdom of Solomon. I called upon God, and Sophia, the spirit of wisdom, came unto me. I loved her and sought her out from my youth. I desired to make her my spouse. I was a lover of her beauty. She is conversant with God. She magnifies his nobility. Yea, the Lord of all things himself loves her. I preferred her before scepters and thrones, and esteemed riches nothing in comparison to her. Nothing compared unto her any precious stone, because all gold in respect of her is as a little sand, and silver shall be counted as clay before her. I loved her above health and beauty, and chose to have her above light. For the light that comes from her never fails. Wisdom reaches from one end of creation to another mightily, and sweetly doth she order all things. For wisdom, which is the worker of all things, taught me. For in her is an understanding spirit, holy, unified, subtle, lively, clear, not subject to hurt, loving the thing that is good. It is the penetrating intelligence which cannot be confounded and is always ready to do good. Sophia is more moving than any motion. She passes and goes through all things by reason of her purity. Sophia is privy to the mysteries of the knowledge of God and a lover of his works. She is more beautiful than the sun and above all the order of the stars. Being compared with the light, she is found before it. She is the breath of the power of God and a pure influence flowing from the glory of the Almighty. Therefore can no defiled thing fall into her. She is the brightness of the everlasting light, the unspoiled mirror of the power of God, and the image of his goodness. Being but one, she can do all things, and remaining in herself, she makes all things new. And in all ages, entering into holy souls, she makes them friends of God and of prophets. For God loves none more but those that dwell in wisdom. We find that divine aspect of wisdom, or Sophia, is the highest order of things. To not only have understanding, but to have wisdom and clarity of thought. We know that wisdom orders all things. And so we seek that wisdom to know the divine, to know ourselves, and to live more fully in the world. And for all these things we are blessed. And so it is. Amen. So we have a young lady with us today who is a bit reluctant to do this, but then she's gotten over that, and we're so thrilled to have you here today, Michelle. Thank you.
In beauty may I walk all day long, may I walk through the seasons, may I walk in peace, may I walk in peace. On this path, may I walk through my life, may I walk in old age, may I walk in peace, may I walk in peace. May I walk, 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 may I walk in peace. May I walk in peace. In joy, may I walk in love, may I walk in gratitude, may I walk in peace, may I walk in peace. In stillness, may I walk in forgiveness, may I walk in loving kindness, walk in peace. Just walk, 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 walk in peace. Yes, walk in peace. Ooh, walk in peace. Walk, 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 walk in peace.
Okay, now you're just showing off. We're so blessed to, I love spiritual community, and what you find is you have community within community with community, and so our whole mission-centric idea is small groups, and this is a lovely small group that really loves each other and has a lot of fun together and serve us so graciously, so I'm truly grateful. So we've been using the power of myth as a theme for the month and looking at some aspects of this sacred journey that we are all on. That we are, Joseph Campbell put together beautifully kind of a concept of that you see in the traditions of mythology, of literature, of popular culture, that I think becomes very helpful in understanding the journey that we've all chosen to be on. And that we somehow have started our lives we start in a place and then something happens that changes the order of things. And we are at a choice of whether we try and get back home without going through the growth or whether we surrender to the process and face the challenges and face the opportunities that come with those challenges that we might discover more deeply who we are. And so we've looked at that all month. But today, I wanted to look at the idea of the feminine aspect of God, the goddess that is kind of overlooked in our culture. So Sophia, who I was quoting for, so in the Hebrew tradition, well, let me say this. So there's an ongoing story of life. There's an ongoing story of culture. There's an ongoing story. Later I learned that somebody didn't just sit down and write the Bible, over a weekend. They, it actually evolved over stories that were told and shared and compiled. And so now we have a Bible that's full of rich history and rich mythology and rich whatever. And so sometimes we always think of Judaism as a monotheistic religion, but there's some other stuff going on there. So this dance between God or Yahweh and Sophia is sort of that tradition. Sophia is that representation of divine wisdom that emanates from the One. Now I say when we look at mythology, whatever the type, whether it's Greek or African or any of the places, mythology is helping us to understand our world. Sometimes I hear myself talking and teaching, and we say, well, there's one divine principle, and that principle works through a law, and that law manifests itself according to your belief into form. Yes? You ever heard that? Great. Yippee. What the heck does that mean? Well, let me draw you a chart, we'll explain it, and all that sort of thing. But sometimes we need something to put our arms around. Remember Marianne Williamson one time saying brilliantly, that's great to know there's a divine principle and it expresses according to its own spiritual nature and it reveals itself into form according to your own nature. But when you're lying awake at 3 o'clock in the morning, crying yourself to sleep or stressing over your world, what do you do with that? So there is a need and a desire to personify these principles. And that is what mythology helps us to do. Now, I'm very clear that mythology is truth, even when it's not factually true. Isn't that interesting? That it's speaking to a deeper story. And so the stories we tell ourselves, I find that this idea of mythology, of of understanding our world. We generate stories around our world so that we can have a greater understanding. We may have mythology in our own family that is, this is the way we are because we are whatever we are, right? Smiths or Joneses or, right? There's stories that help us identify with who we are. There's mythology that we hold as Americans, right? There's a common mythology that we hold. Work hard, get ahead, on and on and on. And so when we are attached to our mythology, then sometimes facts don't matter. If you don't believe me, enter into a political conversation in today's world. And if you're on one side of the divide, you're trying to factually explain something to the other side, and they won't hear it because they believe what they believe. And if you're on the other side of the divide trying to explain why this makes sense to the other, they believe what they believe. And so mythology can be a wonderful binding of ourselves to the larger story, but it can also be an impediment to greater wisdom and understanding. When we understand that mythology helps us, mythology, and I'm using that term in the most generous sense, even religion, whatever the mythology of the religion, helps us to, religion means to bind back to source. Now, too often, religions want to fight with each other about who gets to be right. And I just say, you all are, so get over it, right? Do that, but do it well. Find the heart of your tradition. So in wisdom, when we are accepting the divine aspects, our seeking is not for gold and riches. Our seeking is for wisdom. You see, we have a lot of knowledge these days. We have infinite amounts of knowledge. We all have it on our phone. You have a question about anything, ask your phone, it tells you, right? There are 10 billion responses to this question you've just asked. Which would you like? Right, so knowledge is not the problem for us today. Wisdom, however, is. And so you see a lot of people that know a lot of stuff that aren't very wise about how they live their lives. Charles Fillmore, in The Revealing World, said, "It is very important to understand the importance of our consciousness in spiritual growth. Divine ideas must be incorporated into our consciousness before they can mean anything to us. An intellectual concept does not suffice. A consciousness of eternal life places in the stream of life, and it never fails." You see, how many of you ever heard of affirmations? A few of you. How many of you ever practiced? A few of them. And so what we know with affirmation is you say, "I am rich," and all of a sudden, you're rich. Isn't that cool? Boom! There it is. Right? Or not, because it's not just holding the idea, it is allowing the idea to seep into consciousness where it is resonant with what we believe, and when we believe it, we see it. Affirmations are a tool to help us get to the consciousness of the thing. So as Charles is saying, he's helping us to understand that it's not just the idea, it is seeping that consciousness, it is storing that consciousness. See, I say, in our world, we want everything to be microwave. I'm willing to do 2 affirmations in the morning and at night for a week, and I better get what I want. But consciousness is really more slow cooker. Needs to simmer and stew over time until it begins to be the way we perceive reality. And so all of the great teachers taught us this. Jesus said, "Those who are wise are like the fisherman who caught many fish, and he chose the largest fish to keep and threw the small fish back into the sea." You see, you keep the gems. You keep the good stuff. and you throw the rest away. Part of the problem with our knowledge base is we have so much information that we're not discerning what is important and what needs to be let go of. In the Bhagavad Gita, it writes, "He who has faith and who has mastered his senses attains wisdom. And having attained wisdom, attains supreme peace." That's when we walk in peace. The Buddha said those who read many scriptures, but who fail to practice what they contain, are like someone counting someone else's cows. They gain nothing for themselves. And there's a lot of things that are attributed to Buddha. I'm not sure he said them, but they're still good. So, and another one that says, even though a fool gains the company of a wise man or wise person, he does not comprehend truth any more than a spoon tastes the flavor of the soup. Now we're throwing down, right? It's great that you are here. It's great that we're all together in this wise pool of infinite wisdom, and yet we are each responsible for our own journey, doing our own work. So in our culture, in our patriarchal culture that we are a part of, we very often see things in an interesting light. So a little history of the world. I'm just going to do it in 20 minutes, which is impressive. So back in the day, and I'm talking way back in the day, the worship was around the goddess, because it's fairly obvious where life comes from, right? Everybody has a mother. And so the celebration of life was always very much around the goddess wisdom and the goddess energy and Gaia, which we still carry with us today, as from the Greek is the original goddess who was the source, and we now know her as Mother Earth, a term we use all the time, right? Sophia, again, is that quality of the divine that is wisdom. We have all of these qualities of spirit. And so the primary cultures, the mythology of the time was goddess-based. And interestingly, if archaeologists go back and look, you don't see a lot of weaponry in the drawings and the arts that has been discovered of the time. It's more of the nurturing and the cultivation. Then a shift happened, and we became more geared towards the male aspect. And so we are, when we read our Bible, it's all about he, right? Now there's still some traces, if you look for them, you still see some traces of the divine, the feminine aspect, but it's very much he. And then we move into Christianity, where you have the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Now, I didn't do really well in science, but I know it takes a mama and a papa to get a baby, right? And so it's an interesting concept that is part of that whole patriarchal society, kind of the women were sort of left out. Now, often they say in Christ, it is neither male nor female. You see that balance aspect. But that's why I believe that Mary then elevates to the godlike figure, right? Because we have a need to have a balanced approach to the divine. In our teaching, we often say that spirit is the creative aspect, the masculine aspect, the seed, if you will. And the creative medium, the laws of the universe, the receptivity is the feminine aspect, that is the soil, so that when you plant a seed in soil, you produce a form. We have need to be balanced in our approach to the divine. So as we're looking at these feminine aspects, it's interesting, we were having a conversation just this week sort of about this evolution of spiritual consciousness. And you've heard me talk from time to time about the 4 stages of consciousness that we tend to go through as metaphysicians, where when we begin our journey often in that understanding that life happens to us, right? I grew up in that tradition that life happened to me and hopefully God would get me out of this mess. For the devil got to me and got me deeper, right? That life was happening to me and I was trying to do the best of it, and you make do with what you've got. And then we come across the teachings, whether it's positive mental attitude or the New Thought movement, or today it's everywhere, a real estate seminar, that says you are creative. Your minds are creative. And you participate with this universal intelligence to bring forward that which you desire, that which you believe. Wow, that's good stuff, right? Remember that aha when you found out, I can affirm a thing and begin to create it. And that becomes the level, I often call it, of the princes and palaces and parking spaces. I place my order with the universe, and it delivers to me what I have ordered. And that's a wonderful and powerful thing. But there's another dimension beyond that. That's the level of visualization. That's the level of goal setting. Here's what I want. Here's what it looks like. I sit in it. I feel it. I'm imagining it in my mind. But there's another level when we move even more deeply and we establish those that foundational awareness that the universe is for us, that it delights in its self-expression. Then we can surrender, which is to say to open to the greater possibility. God doesn't need me to tell her how to run the universe. Shocking. That was shocking to me because thought I was so good at it. But it turns out God's got this, right? So what that means is we don't now have to, if we really take that concept and that idea that the universe and this God, spirit, life delights in its self-expression, wants to fulfill itself through us, then we learn to trust. We awaken the feminine aspects, the intuition, the divine guidance, the allowing. We know that if a divine idea is planted, that there is that within us, that feminine aspect that nurtures and brings that forth into life. And so we no longer have to declare a thing or figure it all out, but just knowing that as we walk in the grace of God, our lives are unfolding. That life is working through me. And then if we become truly enlightened, truly aware, we move to that consciousness that the Buddha and that Jesus spoke from, of the I am consciousness. That it's not even God working through us, but God as me. And so when we say I am the truth, I am the resurrection, I am the life, which both Buddha and Jesus had different versions of sayings. They were not talking personality self. They were talking about their oneness, their I amness with that, the Om of the universal intelligence. Now, I always just warn you, don't be doing that in normal circles. Don't do this at a cocktail party. I am the presence of God. I am all that God is. They just look at you like, no more cocktails for you today, right? But that's what we know, isn't it? If we really get this, that there's only one life, that life is everywhere present, that it is co-creating with us, that it is working through us. We are the presence of the divine. I am the light. I am the love. I am the joy. And so our work is not so much now about making things happen as they are about creating the consciousness of making it welcome. See, I don't have to manifest wealth. I have to create an environment within myself that allows my good to be revealed. Now, it's just a little easier to figure out, too, right? It is that trusting in the divine working through us. So sometimes I hear people say things like, we got to get back. We got to get the women in charge again, which wouldn't be an all bad thing. But what I'm sensing, give them a chance to screw it up for a while. The guys have done it well enough for a long time. But really, when we're looking at it, it's this idea. There's a wonderful book, if you ever get a chance to read it, called The Chalice and the Blade. Riane Eisler, who's brilliant. And she really kind of talks about this journey, this spiritual journey that humanity has been on, going from the goddess energy, that whole energy moving, why we moved into the patriarchal energies and all that sort of thing, and how that's developed. And that now we are at a point in time when we are seeking balance. And so it's not that we got to get back to the goddess energy being, or that we got to keep doing the patriarchal thing, but that we find balance. And so she says part of the patriarchal energy is about domination, right? You go to war. You win. Yay. Yay. Only problem is a whole lot of people didn't. And they're regaining their energy now, and so they can come back and get you. And then they win. And that dominator energy creates ongoing struggle and horrible things. But she says what we're moving to is this balancing energy away from the dominator model to the partnership model. That we are bringing forward the masculine and the feminine. We are realizing we should be realizing at a deep, profound level that if we continue that dominator modality, we will find ourselves in big trouble. We see this in our times. We are witnessing what happens when you don't care for your Mother Earth. We are witnessing this incredible power that we have to destroy each other. And I think it was Buckminster Fuller who said the problem is you can't sink half of Spaceship Earth. And so we're in this struggle. And I know when I look out at the world, sometimes I go, what is going on? But then when I step back, when I allow wisdom, I see that this struggle is really something new trying to emerge. And it becomes very visible to me, when I look at the political landscape. I think it's cool that there's like 6 women running. Remember when a woman running was a big deal? Now there's like 6 of them in there going, let me. That's just an indicator that the feminine energies are trying to rise. And it's not so that the women can take over the men. Not so it's about finding that balance, because both of those aspects are important. The masculine and the feminine are important qualities. The truth is we have all of them. To me, it's interesting that we're in this conversation in the world about what is gender, right? And there's people that say, well, let's get back to the good old days when men were men and women were women. It's like it's never been that way. Never been. And what we find is there's really a spectrum. There's a spectrum of what is identified as that. I remember having a really dear friend, heterosexual, was very effeminate, did hair. So all kinds of people made all kinds of assumptions about this very heterosexual man. And others will make an assumption because we want to confuse all that. But I think the freedom that is emerging is to saying, I'm all that. As I like to say over and over and over, all we are is the divine. We are all those qualities. We all have masculine energy, feminine energy. We have all of those things within us. So be you. Each of us got a unique costume. Don't confuse the costume with who you are. Right? Who you are is divine. You have creative intelligence. You can manifest through the power of your spoken word. You can heal. You can bless. You can prosper. You also have feminine energies that allows you to be receptive to divine guidance, that allows you to be guided by this infinite wisdom which is seeking its greater self-expression. One is not better than the other. But when they are balanced, when we find the yin and the yang, when we find the Tao of our being, that's real power. So I believe that this moment in history that we are sitting in is a moment of emergence. That something is happening at a planetary level, at a global level. And we look out in the world and see it as chaos. And it looks chaotic. Chaos was one of the gods. Male, by the way, but one of the gods. Right? Because out of chaos comes order. So again, this is why mythology is helpful to go, oh, look, that's a way to identify what's happening in our world. It doesn't make it more real. For each one of us, though, we return to those great words of Charles Fillmore where he tells us that the idea of itself, that the divine ideas must be incorporated into our consciousness before they can mean anything to us. You see, it's not enough to just think positive thoughts. We must let those positive thoughts deepen into our positive way of being. That is not what I think, it is what I believe. And so I believe God is good. I believe God is everywhere present. I believe that each of us is a divine emanation of this one living Spirit with unspeakable power and joy and wisdom within us. And I believe that we are stepping into a time where we are called upon to truly allow that divine light within us to shine brightly. And that as more and more of us awaken to that, then we will see the transformation of the planet. We will remember that we share a common vision with all humanity. We will remember there's only one home. We will remember there's more that unites us than divides us. And we will remember that God is good and all is well. So let us continue the journey. Let us pray. As we simply deepen into that awareness, that realization, that understanding, in this holy and sacred moment, we are reminded that the one life, the one presence, the one power is the I am. The Master taught us that it is in this presence that we live and move and have our very being. And as we surrender to that greater wisdom, to that greater intelligence, to that greater being, we allow our minds and our hearts to unify. Our hearts to unify with divine love. Our minds with infinite wisdom. We are surrendering in this moment to the realization of truth. We are knowing that it is truth that sets us free. We set ourselves free of the past limitations that have bound us. We set ourselves free of the limiting ideas that we hold about ourselves or about each other. We sing those words that let peace begin with me. Let love begin with me. Let compassion begin with me. Each of us gathered here is that radiant light of the one, calling forth that which is within us, being a blessing to all. And so I'm speaking the word of wholeness this day. I'm knowing that that wholeness is revealing itself as health and vitality. I'm speaking the word of truth as I recognize that there is but one power, one love that heals our relationships. As we honor and recognize the Christ in each other, the divine in each other, something is transformed. We fully and freely forgive ourselves and those we perceive to have harmed us. We recognize and know that we are abundant beings, for we participate in the divine flow of life. We open ourselves to be receptive to our greater good. Joyously we give and generously receive of this divine bounty. As we sang those words, I walk in peace. I walk in love. For I am the embodiment of the one living God. How good it is to know this truth. And as we do so, we recognize the many blessings. We extend a blessing. We bless this community, this wonderful unity of Charlotte, holding that high vision of a church unfolding for a greater good. We extend that blessing to our brothers and sisters, not only in the community, but in the world. We're holding that high vision for a planet at peace, for a world that works for all. And as always, we bless all priests and rabbis, ministers and teachers of all faiths, for we know there are many pathways to the divine. For all of these blessings and so many more, I'm simply giving thanks. With a joyful and grateful heart, I know that it is established. And through the power of the living Christ, it goes forth to be a blessing to all. In gratitude, then, I simply allow it to be so, as together we say, and so it is. Amen.
I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. I think I can make it now, the pain is gone. All of the bad feelings have disappeared. Here is the rainbow I've been praying for. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. Look all around, there's nothing but blue sky. Look straight ahead, there's nothing but blue sky. That's a lot of blue sky. I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. 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 It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day.
The gospel in one word is love.
Nice. Stay up here. We're going to do something magnificent today. I just want to extend a special blessing to these beautiful souls. So exciting. We get to set up another room, painting if you're interested Saturday morning. But it's so beautiful. But I especially want to extend a blessing to these wonderful teachers that show up and just serve us so graciously and all you guys back there. And they're all over. We love you all. It's exciting to watch this grow. I believe the greatest work we can be doing in the world right now is preparing the next generation. So, let's do something magnificent. Want to do that with me? Yes. You know, you kind of do what I do, and then they, okay, great. So please stand. And affirm a size with this. Do what I do, repeat after me, they'll tell you what to do. Shake it out. Okay. Something magnificent is happening through me right now.
Something magnificent is happening through me right now.
It is happening through my mind.
It is happening through my mind.
Through my body.
Through my body.
Through my affairs.
Through my affairs.
I think it.
I think it.
I believe it.
I believe it.
I accept it.
I accept it.
I rejoice. I name it good and very good.
I name it good and very good.
Thank you, God.
Thank you, God.
And so it is.
So it is.
Let's sing the peace song.
On earth, and it has begun with me. Now there is peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as Creator, united all are we. Now we walk with each other in perfect harmony. Peace has begun with me, and this is a moment now. With every step I take, now this is my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternal.